Most developers fail this question in React interviews. Why? Because it looks simple but it's full of sneaky edge cases. From backspace behavior to smart OTP pasting, mess one up and you are out. But today you will crack it with me step by step. Welcome to Win Machine Coding Interviews in React series, where we decode real-world interview questions and build pro-level components that get you hired. In this episode, we are building a fully functional OTP input UI like the ones you see in the login forms. Ready to prove that you are not just another tutorial dev? Let's go. So let's implement this OTP input component in our app. So I have taken one basic React setup here. So it has one app component and it says Win Machine Coding in React with Shubham. Okay, so let's take one OTP input component here. So I'll create one file. Okay, that file. So we'll take the name as OTP input.tsx. We are completely using TypeScript here. So yes, we'll take the tsx extension here. Let's create one simple component here and let's call it in OTP input. Okay, and the props will be called OTP input props. We'll take the length prop here. So we should be able to decide how many input boxes we need in the OTP, because if you see in some login forms we have 4 inputs, in some we have 6 inputs, and in some we have 5 as well. So we'll take one length here, and that will be optional as we'll take 6 as the default value here. Okay, length 6. Okay, we'll take the default value. Okay, and let's import this into the app component. OTP input component. Okay, and let's write something here. OTP input. Yes, our component is successfully integrated with our app. So let's do one thing. So what we have to do it here. So we have to create the number of input boxes based on the length we provide. So here we have the length at 6. So what we will do is we'll create 6 input boxes. We'll place it in single row and we'll gap it somehow. And what we have to do, we have to enter inputs here. So there are number of possibilities and number of edge cases we have to handle in OTP input. So it looks simple but it makes bit hard because it has many edge cases. So what are the edge cases we have to handle here? And the first edge case is every input should handle only one number. Okay, so we should not be able to handle many letters in single input. So this is the first thing we should be able to enter only one number there. What is the next case we have to handle? So whenever one number is entered, the focus should be shifted to the next input by default. Okay, so that's how you must have filled OTPs, right? So if you enter something, focus will be shifted to the next input by default. So this is the case we have to handle. The next case we have to handle is whenever user uses backspace, the focus should be shifted to the previous input box. So that's how user will be able to clear the input in the OTP. So let's get started with the basic setup and let's implement gradually all these edge cases so that our OTP component will become production ready. So let's implement it step by step. How we can implement the 6 input boxes or the input boxes based on the provided length. What we can take is, we'll take one state variable OTP, we'll create an array of 6 empty strings there and we'll map it to the input elements so that whatever will fill in the input will be stored in that state variable. Okay, so let's get started with that. Okay, we'll call it set OTP. Okay, and it will be array of strings as I said. Let's import use state here. As this input will be mapped to each input in the OTP, what we have to do is we have to create one array of empty strings, and the array will have the default length as we have provided in the prompt. So let's create it. So array of length, and by default it will take 6, and we'll fill it with empty string. Okay, so this OTP will become an array of empty strings. So it will become like this one, and so on. Like it will have the 6 strings here. So let's delete it. Okay, and this will be the container. This div will be the container of our OTP. So let's do one thing. Let's style it up front so that our OTP inputs will be displayed in the single line. So we'll use display flex here, and we'll have some gap between the inputs, so that gap will be 8 px, maybe 8 or 10 px. Okay, so what we have to do, we have to create 6 inputs here, right? So we'll do one thing. We have the OTP array in the state, so we'll map this OTP array, and by mapping it we'll create 6 inputs. So let's do that. OTP dot map, and we'll get the value and index of each input or OTP input, and we'll return input here. The type will be text here. Okay, the type is text. So here you can see we are getting the 6 input boxes. So we can try clicking on it. Yes, it is working. But the width is not as expected, right? So if you have seen OTP inputs, they are usually squares. So let's style it so that we'll be getting all looking as OTP input boxes. So let's do it. I'm using the inline style here, but what we can do is we can add the style classes later. So height will be 50 pixels, and the width will also be 50 pixels, right? Okay, so here you can see we have the input boxes, uh, which are square. If we just click on it, okay, the input is starting from the very left, so that's not we want, right? We should be able to input the number in the middle. So what we can do is we'll align this text to center. Text align center. Okay, right. So we have the text input in the middle, and we have 6 input boxes looking as OTP input. So we'll try by using tab. We can switch the focus to the next input box. Yes, so our OTP box setup is done. What we have to do next is we have to handle all the edge cases. So we need to focus each input box whenever one number is entered in it. So whenever we enter 1 here, what we have to do is we have to shift the focus to 2. And whenever we enter 2, we have to shift the focus to 3, and so on. So let's handle that edge case first. So if you know, for handling focus in React, refs are the best way. We have to handle the focus for each and every input box. We'll create one array of refs here. Let's do that first. So we'll create one array of refs, and we'll call it as input refs. Input refs, and we can make use of use ref hook here, and it will be by default an array. Okay, and what will be the type of this ref? So it will be array of inputs, that is HTML input element, or okay, I made a spelling mistake, I guess. Yes, or null. So by default it will be null, so that's why we are taking it as null. Okay, so this will be the array of refs, and we have to attach each inputs ref to the particular index into the input refs array. So suppose this is the first input and the index is 0, so we'll attach this 0th index input elements ref to the 0th index ref of input refs. So let's do that. So ref equals to, so it will give one arrow function here, so it will accept it. In this function, what we can do is at that particular index we'll assign this particular input element, input refs. Okay, so input refs is the array of refs, and in that, at this index we have to assign this element. Okay, so this is how we can do this in the ref. Now what we can do is we'll make this input element controlled. What is meant by controlled React elements? We'll assign one value and on change props on the input element. Whenever the state or the input in the input element changes, we'll grab that value into the state. So let's assign the value prop here, and the value will be nothing here. The value we are getting from the OTP state variable. This value will assign it here. Okay, and let's add the on change handler here. Okay, and here we will be getting one event that will pass to the handle change handler. Will pass this event and the index of this input. So let's implement this handle change handler. So we are getting the event and the index. So let's give the types. If we just hover over it, we'll get the type of that particular event. So let's copy that type, and index will of course be a number. Right. Okay. So what will be here in the handle change? What logic we have to implement here? So the first thing we will do is we'll check if the value that we are getting from the input is number or not. If it is not number, then we'll return this and we'll not run this logic. So let's grab the value first. So we get the value in the event.target.value. Okay. And what we can do is we'll check if if this value is not number. The value should start by number, and as we are taking only one or single input, what we can do is we'll take slash d for digit. So what is the use of this regex here? So what we are doing is we are checking if the input has only single value and it starts and ends with a number, that is number, and if it is not the case, then what we will do is we'll just return and will not go forward. So that is the use of this step. Now what we have to do is we have to map that particular inputs value to the OTP state variable. So let's start by copying that OTP array into new OTP, as we need to change the state immutably. Let's grab that first OTP. Okay, now this in this new OTP, at particular that index, we have to put this value. Okay, and we'll do set OTP as new OTP. So what we are doing is we are copying the current OTP values at that particular index of the input. We are putting the value, and we are again assigning or setting the state with the new OTP. So when we enter any input box, what we have to do is we have to shift the focus to the new input box. Correct. So that is our edge case, and that is our main requirement. So what we can do is we can judge based on if the value entered is a number and we have at least one input box left, we have to focus that input box. So let's do one thing. If value is there and the index is less than the length minus 1, because the indexes start from 0, we have to track it using length minus 1. And what we have to do is we have to focus that input box. So for focusing, we'll write one function which will be generic, in which we'll pass the index and we'll focus that particular input. So let's write that function first. So it will take one index and it will be number. We'll focus that particular input element using refs. So we'll grab that input first. Okay, there is a typo here. Yeah, and if the input is present, we'll focus it. Okay, so that's it. We have written the generic logic for focusing any input element. So whenever we have value entered in one input box, we have to focus the next one. So what we can do is focus input, and we'll pass the next index to it. Okay, so it will focus the next index element. So this is about focusing the next element. What if when we reach the final index or final input box, we have to submit that OTP, right? So let's handle that logic. So how would we know that we have reached the final input box? So if each of the input box has some value, then we can say that we have reached the final input box. So let's do that. New OTP, that's an array, every digit. So this every digit is not empty. Then we can say we have reached the final input box and we'll submit it. So this submit logic we'll do it later. For now, we'll just write some placeholder here. Okay. So let's test our logic. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And boom, we have written one logic to focus the next input box when we enter one number. So we have successfully created the OTP input box here. So let's handle the other edge cases like backspace and pasting the OTP input. So let's start with the backspace or the keyboard press events. So yeah, and one thing we are missing here is the max length of the OTP should be 1. That's one more important thing we have to do. Yes, so we have to make use of key press event or key down event. So I'll do on key down event handle key down, and we'll pass again the same event and index. Okay, and let's implement this handle key down method here. Event and index is again number. Okay, and the event we have is, let's go to this. We have React keyboard event HTML input element. Let's copy this type. Right. Okay. Let's write the logic for this now. The first thing we have to do is what key is entered by user. If that key is backspace, what we have to do is we have to update the state of OTP, and at that particular index we have to clear the value of that particular input element. That's the backspace operation. If the current index is cleared, what we have to do is we have to shift the focus to the last input box. So let's do that. So if, and how we can get the access to the key pressed by user, we can use event.key, and if it is backspace, what we have to do, we have to do some logic here. The event to be handled by ourselves will restrict the browser specific behavior of that backspace key. So we'll do prevent default for this, for restricting the browser specific behavior of this key. And what we can do is we can do const, again the same copy of the OTP state, as we have to update the state immutably. And in this, if OTP value is there at that particular index, we have to do something here, and else we'll do some other thing. If the OTP is not cleared, so we'll clear it. Okay, so new OTP and that particular index will clear the value. So we'll make it empty and we'll set the OTP as new OTP. Okay. What is the error here? Yeah, correct. So what if the OTP at particular index is already clear? So what we can do, we'll track if that index is greater than 0, because for 0 we have to handle the another logic. So if the index is greater than 0 and the OTP is cleared, in the new OTP we'll shift the focus to the last input box. So we'll make the last input as empty. We'll set the set OTP as new OTP again, and we focus the last input. So this is the logic about handling the backspace. Okay, what else we have to do is we have to handle the left and right arrow keys, so that we should be able to navigate the focus between various input boxes. So else if event.key is arrow left, okay, and index should be greater than 0, okay. Then we'll handle the left arrow key, and for the right arrow key we'll do the same logic. Event dot key equals to arrow right, and index should be less than the last index, so last index is length minus 1, and so we'll do this. Okay, so when we press the left arrow key, we have to shift the focus to the last input box, so we'll do it like focus input index minus 1, okay, for the last index. And when we hit the right arrow key, what we have to do is we have to handle focus input index plus 1, okay. So that's it about the handle key down event. So let's try that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Let's try the backspace first. Okay, backspace is hit. Great. We have implemented the backspace operation here successfully. Next thing we did was the arrow left and right keys. So let's try that. Yes, I'm able to focus the input using arrow keys. So that is also done. Great. So what is the next edge case we have to handle? So the next edge case we have to handle is pasting of input. So let's try that. So for pasting the input, we'll make use of clipboard data API of the browser, and we should be able to paste the data on the container of the OTP, and we should be able to enter that OTP by just pasting the data. So let's do one thing. It will be one paste handler. The event will be on paste, okay, and we'll do the handle paste here, and let's implement this function. Event, again we have to do it, so it will be clipboard event as I said. So let's do this thing, clipboard event, and it as we the target element is div, so let's enter HTML div element here, okay. Okay, it's saying clipboard event is not generic, so that's fine. Okay, so we have to get the text from the clipboard, correct? For that we'll take one variable, that will be paste event dot clipboard data, and we have to get the data from the clipboard, so we have the method get data on that, and the type of it will be text. So yes, so this is the thing, possibly null. So what we can do is we can use optional chaining here, okay. Yeah, so we'll get this paste as the clipboard data that we have copied. We'll check if this text is numeric. So what we can do is, if again the same regex we have to use it here, slash d and the dollar dot test, and we'll pass the paste here, and if it is true, paste, and as this can be null, we'll add this thing here, the empty string, and if it is true, we'll return from here, okay. And the next thing we have to do is we have to convert this pasted text into array, as we have to pass it to the OTP array. So we'll split it and we'll make a copy of it, and we have to slice it to the length that we need, because this text can be so long, right? That's why we need to slice it. And let's again make the copy of this OTP, okay. Okay, so what we have done here is, for each element in the paste array, we have added that particular character into the new OTP. So that's we want, right? We have to enter the OTP from the pasted text. For that we have used this logic here, and we'll set OTP to this new OTP. Okay, and what if the pasted text is smaller than the OTP length, that is it's smaller than 6 here? What we can do is we can focus that particular element in that case. So let's find the index that we have to focus. So post next index. So we can make use of paste array here. If paste array length is greater than or equal to length, like it's greater than or equal to 6, then the index that we have to focus is length minus 1. That is the last index. Else, what we can do is we can focus the paste array dot length index as focused, right? So if it has only 3 letters, so we'll focus the third input box. And for focusing, we have the function focus input, and we'll pass the next index here. And if it has exactly 6 letters, so we can directly submit it. If paste ar dot length is equals to length, then we can submit it. Okay. So this is about the pasting logic. So to test this feature, what I can do is I'll write some number here, and let's cut this and paste it on our component. Okay, so it's working fine, and we have implemented this paste feature as well. What we can do next is we can handle the submit, so that um, whenever the OTP reaches the sixth input box or the final input box, it will get submitted. So let's implement that. Let's call it on submit, and we'll get the OTP here. Okay, and so it will be one array of strings, and what we'll do is we'll alert the OTP. Okay, and let's call this on submit in part where we wanted the on submit. Okay, and pass the new OTP here. Okay, and let's get this function to the top so that we can call it. Okay, in the handle change also we have to call this. We'll submit, and here also we'll pass the new OTP. Okay, so let's try all the edge cases here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So here you can see we have got our alert. You enter this OTP. So this is the on submit thing we have implemented. It will work for the paste operation. Yeah, so this was all about the OTP component, and we implemented each and every edge case in this OTP, and we can style it as we want. But yeah, this was about the core logic of the OTP component. So if you just like this video, hit like, share with your friends, and hit subscribe, and watch all the videos in this playlist, win React Machine Coding Interview Series. So that's for today. Thank you.